Okay, so in the previous video, we talked about two important data structure is a text and number. And if you cannot differentiate them, then the computer will do totally different things. So now today we will move to a slightly like a more complicated data structure, and this one is called a list. So list, it's actually simple. You can just think about it's the um, let's say if each number or each text is considered as a page of paper, and then list is envelope to just put all the paper inside. Okay, so and the list have the sequence for that. So you can just in each of the element inside of this list, and that can be a number or it can be a text, it can be anything else complicated. But over here, it's this list have 1, 2, 3, 4, and another text information like apple. Okay, so I just have this one and post it here. So you can see you have the element, and the data type is a list. So if you know how to use string, then list it's just have very similar operation. So list is I wanted to choose a piece of information inside. List you just do exactly the same thing. So if I want to get the first element like the 1 here, then I just have the p list and still use a bracket, say 0, then I have access to 1, same p list, and the brackets -0, and I have access to the last one. If I have the p list brackets 6, okay, the brackets 6 here, you can see it's out of the range. Why? Because this index is 0 if you have the extension of this one. So index 0 corresponding to 1, you at most have the index 4 corresponding to the apple. If you have the 6, it's out of the range. Okay, and you can also select a sublist like a p underscore list like a -3 semicolon. If you don't specify anything below, that's all the way to the last. From the last 3, it's starting from 3 all the way to the end. So that's the list we're gonna have. Okay, and then they have another built-in function is a length. Okay, so they were telling you how many elements inside. So for the list, if you use this one, you see it's 5 because they have 5 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the length they say is 5. So then you can just do some exercise. Just pause my video a little bit. How can I get the apple here? So you actually have 2 ways. Okay, so for this one you can have the p list, say okay they have the index 4, then that's how we get the apple, or just like the previous one, -1, right? So how I get the list 2, 3, 4, then you should start with the index 1. Okay, so it's a p underscore, then index 1 start from here and all the way to the 4 to the 3, but the last I think is the same as the text. The last one will not be included, so you actually need to end with 4. Okay, so the last index will not be included, so it's consistent for you to use a text or when you use a list. So that's how you can get this. You can use a negative number, that's really up to you. Okay, so when you have a list, then what if I wanted to add a new element into the list? So still the list is here. I have this value. I don't initialize this one. Say I have one list. This p list is equal to whatever the p list you have. It's this plus another list. When they do the updates, I will just change the value of the p list by this formula. So let's just try to see what's gonna look like. Let's see. So That's this one, and try to watch the change over here. So you can see the second list AB5 will be added into the end of the P list. So they just do these updates they're gonna have, right? But what if I have like a P list equal to P list plus 1? When you have this one, let's say it's wrong, because list, when you do the add operation, you can only do the operation for another list. So if you, what you want to do is, I want to put the 1 at the end of that. So you can actually have two ways to do it. One way is just use the same one, but you need to use a bracket. Although it's just one element for this list, but that's the way how you change the number into the list. And then the list can have the operation to the list. So when you to do the operation, you probably need to be aware, okay? These kind of very trivial type of things. So if you have this one, you can see, okay, I add the 1 at the end. If you just want to add one element, so you can have another way. It's just say P list. You can have this append function. Say, okay, I will add the number 6 and watch the change over here. So now you can see, okay, I will add the 6 at the end. Okay, but when you try to do, that's the thing. It's very frustrating and to the beginner. So when you use append, you just use whatever the element. You will not use a list. But when you use the add, then you need to use a list. You cannot just use a single like a number here or text here. So it's very confusing. So you need to understand like when you use this function or do this calculation, what kind of actual data type they want you to provide. Okay, don't provide the wrong thing. So what if like I have the P list dot append. I forgot, I just need to put a number here. That's enough. What if I put the list here? Let's say I have the brackets. Okay, so now bracket 6 inside is another list. When I have this one, now you can see it's very trivial thing. The last one you add, it's another list. Okay, so the list is just like the envelope. You can still put another envelope inside this current envelope, right? So nothing is wrong with this one. So list can just add whatever the things inside, but that's a sequence. So if I wanted to get the last element, this last 6, how should I have the reference to it? So to differentiate list from the other, they start with a bracket and end with a bracket, okay? And then each element is separated by comma. But when you see, when they separate by comma, this here, you still have something start with brackets and end with brackets. How can I have the reference 6 here? Because this 6 and equal to this, it's probably not easy for you to do the differentiation. So I just add 7 here. Say, okay, how can I get the number 7 inside? So in order to have this one, it's the same. When you have the list, you have the bracket. So the index is 11. You can watch here, okay, or the last one. So now they have 11 anyway. When I press this, you can see that's another list. But I just wanted the number 7 instead of a list. So you can see over here I have the list. Then I want to get the first element inside of this list. That's how you get the number 7. Okay, so you probably have some nested index. It's just depending on how you save your data. So the same, that's how you insert the data. At the same time, you can update the list. Okay, so for this one, if you just wanted to update each element here, it's like I just initialize this one. Okay, since this has been added to element here, it's not present to have an update. So I just initialize this first. I just change it to okay. So I want to change the index 4. Now I say apple. I want to actually change this to 5. So you just need to have to specify like the index, say p list, and say okay, for the fourth element you change whatever the things you want to make the change. Now that has been changed for okay, sorry. That's kind of sneezing. Okay. So now you can see this apple has been changed into the 5. Okay. And another thing, say okay, I can still have a subset of the list I want to make the change. Say starting from 2 to 5. So it's starting 0, 1, 2, 2 to 5 is 3, 4, 5. Okay. So for this list, sublist, say 2 to 5, I want to change to another list like a 9, 8, and just keep watching on what type of change. You can see a sublist 3, 4, 5 has been changed like a 9, 8. Okay, so that's the things. It's kind of straightforward. And another sublist, you can actually just change this into like a one number. So it's really up to you. Okay, so let's see for the P list from 0 all the way to the 2, it's actually 1 and 2. Okay, so for this 1 and 2 together, for this list, I will just want use 3 to replace it. And okay, so you can see if you want to initialize this into 3, you cannot just use because this is a sublist, and for this sublist you cannot directly use a number to do that. And in order to make it the correct way, say okay, I want to change this 1, 2 into 3. The correct way you need to have it, you need to use a list to replace another list. Okay, so you cannot just, even this list just have one number, but you still cannot just exactly use one number. So it's very trivial. Okay, but these trivial things, when you try to write your algorithm, sometimes you're gonna have this type of mistake, and it's very discouraging. But that's probably takes time for you to like do the debug. I will talk about the idea how you're gonna do that later on. But right now, you can see this probably rely on you memorize, or if you see some error like this one, that's the things you have to check. Then the last one is how you're gonna delete the list. So I still initialize the list to the original one. Okay, so you can use a delete function. Say okay, I just delete one element here. So right now, when I have the delete, I will delete the apple, so I don't have this one. And if I want to delete the first 2 elements, I just post it here, and you will see that 1 and 2 will be deleted. Okay, so now you have the 3 and 4 left. So those type of when you have the list, you have the index, add, update, and delete. It just it's kind of straightforward, but when you make the change, you always keep that in mind. You probably need to use the right data type. Okay, if you use the wrong data type or you just have the wrong index, they will have an error. Another thing related to list is you can have a list nested in another list. So let's say I have a list A, it's like ABC here. Okay, and then I have a list of the number, it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, what if I have a list of X? The first element is this list, and the second element is this list, number list. So when you have this, and you will see for these PX, it's actually have 2 elements, but inside each of these elements, you have another list. Okay. So, and if you have the reference to each specific element, so for example, if I want to know, like for px brackets 1 and brackets 2. What does that mean? So px brackets 1 is corresponding to this list. Okay, so it's now this number list. And then based on this number list, I have the brackets 2 is actually have the index of the 3 here. So if you want to see this one, okay, p underscore x like 1 and 2. When you enter, that's the 3 they were talking about. And what if I just have 3 times px? 3 times p underscore x, just as I mentioned. The operation to the string is very similar to the operation to the list. But because essentially you can consider a string is a list contain each letter. Okay, so this operation is very similar. So when you use a plus, you can only add 2 strings together. You cannot add a string and a number because that's 2 different categories. And the same thing when you use a times, that means it's not actually times the number inside, it's just repeated 3 times. Okay, so you can see inside of this list that these 2 elements has been repeated 3 times. Okay, so that's what they're gonna do. And when you do the times and especially the plus, you make sure you have the right data type. You cannot like 1 plus another text 4. It's not working. Okay, this is 2 different categories. So only until like you have the same category, or you either all the text or you all the number, then that's the right operation. So for the list, it's the same. You cannot just add a list 1 plus, let's see, a number 1. You cannot do that. Or you also like the text 1, you still cannot do it. You have to have a list. Okay, so if you have the 1 and add another list text 1, then you can see the first element is number and the second element is text. Okay.